Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm out on the middle of a frozen river in the middle of January here in Ontario, Canada. And the first time that I've shot a video review out in a place like this, but I wanted to give you a sense of the environment that I have been testing the new Canon 100 to 400 millimeter f4.5 to 5.6 LIS USM, and this is the Mark II version that a lot of people are really excited about. And for good reason. This is an awesome lens. I've enjoyed using it in a variety of weather conditions, but mostly it's been like today. It's been very cold, and as a result of that, I've had a chance to test some of the things or weather sealing on this body, and also how it's going to function in, let's say, less than ideal conditions. So right now I'm standing out on the river in between a couple of islands that I often will shoot from the shoreline, which is hundreds of yards away during the other months of the year. But today it's solid out here, and as you can see, there are people that are set up for ice fishing and have their huts out here, and even somebody off that direction. They've got their RV parked out here right in the middle of the river. Behind me you can see the distant shore, which is well more than a mile away, and that's the province of Quebec, and we're still on the Ontario side right now. But it's a pretty interesting place to talk about this fabulous new lens. This lens has a lot of great things going for it. It follows up a lens that was very popular amongst a lot of photographers, although it had a bit of a polarizing design in that it had what you might call a push-pull design, in which the zoom action was done by pulling out the lens rather than any kind of a twist zoom like this. In many ways, Canon has used the popular design of its 70 to 300L lens, a lens that I love, and incorporated some of those design elements into this new lens, but with a few notable improvements that we're going to look at in detail. So first of all, let's look at the actual construction of this lens. As I've said, it is a traditional twist zoom design. The zooming action is nice and smooth, and on that, one other unique thing about the design of the new 100 to 400L lens is that rather than having a switch for a zoom lock to protect the lens from creeping when gravity might pull the zoom lens to extend, it instead has this unique ring that I think is a great design. It's integrated right into the lens. And so on its smooth setting, it allows the actual zoom action to be, well, smooth and moves easily in and out. But then with a quick rotation of that ring, and by the way, this works at any kind of extension, and so if you want to hold it at a certain position, you can rotate that over to the tight position, and you will find that while you still can, with a great amount of effort, you still can move it, it will keep it locked and prevent any kind of creeping in that situation. Now there's a variety of reasons why I think this is a better design than the traditional switch. For one, it allows you to lock it into any kind of zoom position that you might want it to be at. But secondly, I find that it works far easier if you're wearing gloves. And of course, I am doing this review during January in Canada, and so I have to wear gloves when I'm out shooting. I've been doing most of my work here in sub-zero temperatures. And so I find that this is much easier to manipulate with gloves, and also it seems to be a much more natural function of part of shooting. As I bring the lens up, I'm just releasing that a bit, even as I go to zoom the lens out. On top of that, you can also choose a position that's somewhere in the middle. It's not one or the other, and so in a kind of a middle position, you'll find that the zoom action is still relatively easy to do. But there's just enough friction on there to prevent any kind of creeping while walking along carrying the lens in a harness of some type. So once again, I think this is a great bit of innovation that Canon has worked into the design of this lens. Let me add to that, however, that it's in these kinds of conditions that really prove to me how effective this is. For one thing, as you can see, I wear gloves when I'm out shooting. Your hands would very, very quickly freeze, and the weather conditions, right now it's about 10 degrees Fahrenheit out here, or minus 17, 18 Celsius, and so it's cold, and your hands start to feel that really quickly. But one of the great things about this design is that it's very easy to twist this ring when you're wearing gloves. And unlike some of the switches that can be hard to kind of maneuver, this lens works very well in this condition. Another very nice incorporation of this is into the design of the actual lens hood, and we'll take a closer look at that as well. One of the challenges that many photographers run into the field with telephoto lenses is that they find if they're using a circular polarizing filter to deal with various lighting conditions that they become very difficult to actually access because of the great depth of the lens hood. So in the field they find themselves trying to reach down in with fingers and to turn or manipulate the actual filter, and in the process inadvertently often put fingerprints on the front of the filter or just have a general amount of frustration. Canon has come up with a very innovative solution for this with this new 100 to 400 millimeter lens by adding into the actual lens hood a little door that will slide open and close and allows you direct access to the side of the circular polarizing filter, and so you can rotate it to the correct position very easily, and then of course you can shut that to prevent stray light from hitting the front element. It's a great solution and one that I hadn't thought of before, but in the field it works perfectly. And then as you can see, I do have the tripod collar removed. I tend to do a lot of my shooting handheld, and to be very frank, this is not a difficult lens to hand hold at all. Its weight is, while it's not light, it's a solidly built lens, but it is not overwhelmingly heavy. And I find that it's not at all a difficult lens to be out like this and to quickly use and shoot in a variety of conditions without having to rely on a tripod or even a monopod. And so I have the actual tripod foot removed, right, or collar foot removed right now. And that's the way that I keep it most of the time. But it enables me to rotate what remains out of the way, and I don't think that there's a lot of additional weight that's included as a result of that. And while this lens does not allow for complete removal of the tripod collar, it does have a very innovative approach. The closest comparison that I can actually come up with is for the Canon USM system, which actually had a similar removable foot for its EF adapter. It has a built-in knob that allows you to actually unscrew and then actually release the tripod collar, or at least the foot portion of it. And so I find that to be a clever approach to dealing with this fairly common problem. The build quality on this is exceptional. It's very, it's built much like the 70-300L. It feels very solid, very dense. It's fully weather sealed. It's built to be used out in all kinds of conditions, and that's just what we need from a lens like this, because it's a lens that's designed to be used in, let's face it, adverse weather conditions, and wildlife is very rarely indoor in nice pleasant environments. And so this lens is built to survive going out into the woods backpacking, or going out on safari, or wherever else you might be, including out on a frozen river. But it's a lens that is designed to take a beating, and I really like the way that this lens feels and is designed. And as you go beyond the actual build and you begin to use the lens, you discover several things very quickly. Number one of the knocks against the older version, the Mark I of this lens, was the fact that its image stabilizer was of an older design. And so as a result, it only offered about 2 stops of assistance, which is better than nothing, but clearly not up to the standards of what modern lenses are offering. You don't have to worry about this with this lens, for while it offers up a rated 4 stops of assistance, fuel testing says that it may do even better than that. And so it works really well. And on top of that, it combines 3 different stabilizer modes that enable you to adapt it to whatever shooting condition you might be in. If you want to do panning, for example, you can set it into a mode where it's only correcting on one axis. And so as you move along in panning mode, the lens will continue to stabilize in that horizontal axis. The autofocus on the lens is nice and snappy. And I find that at all focus distances, it focuses nice and quickly, and also at all focal lengths. I have no problem with snapping in focus, and I've been very pleased with that. Also, superior to the Mark I of this version is this lens has been optimized to be used with Canon's extenders. Now, it's obviously only going to really work properly, or best, I would say, with a 1.4 times extender. And I've been able to test it with that, and I can attest that, number one, the image quality holds up to using the extender, but also it continues to autofocus accurately and well with an extender mounted to it. And so that makes it a very versatile lens, because when you add on that extender, all of a sudden you have a focal range of a 140 millimeters to 560 millimeters, which helps it to be a little bit more of a competition for a very popular lens from Tamron, the 150 to 600 millimeter, and then also a new Sigma. Now, this lens is about twice as much as the Tamron, and it's roughly about the same price as Sigma's new 150 to 600 millimeter, but it has a few advantages over those lenses. One of the most amazing things about this new Canon lens is its ability to focus down very closely. One of the challenges sometimes that either birders or wildlife photographers run into is there's those rare occasions where the animal comes in closer than what you anticipate. And many telephoto lenses, their closest that they can focus is 10 feet or longer. The Tamron that I typically use, it's a little bit better, but still it's around 9 feet is its minimum focus distance. But this lens has an exceptional focus. It'll focus down to 3.5 feet or under 1 meter, which means that you're almost never going to be in a situation where you can't get the lens to focus where you want it to. And so as a result, it obviously also has a great maximum magnification. And so with that kind of working distance, along with a magnification of around 0.3 times or nearly 1/3 life-size magnification, it means that you can take some great near macro type photos. And of course, with this long focal length, it's going to completely blow out diffuse backgrounds, and it produces some really great looking images in that kind of setting. So that's another pretty huge asset for this particular lens. In fact, I haven't found hardly anything to criticize about this lens. Canon may have been a little late getting to the party, and Tamron, I think, probably snapped up some market share with the release of the 150 to 600. But while Canon may have been a little bit late coming out with this, they spent that time wisely, and they produced a lens that really is exceptional. It has great optics. It doesn't give up a whole lot compared to the prime lenses that cover this focal length. It really does a great job. It has great fast focus. It's built exceptionally well, but at the same time, it is light enough and compact enough that it's really not either a burden to bring along packed in your gear or to be out shooting handheld. And so that's a pretty huge advantage. Sigma's new 150 to 600 millimeter sport lens, while it has good optics, it's also very large and very heavy. And so I think that this lens has an advantage in that regard, particularly when it does so well with using extenders on it. And unlike some of the big telephotos from Canon and from other manufacturers, it's not so expensive that it becomes prohibitive to purchase. And so I think it's within reach for a lot of amateurs or even professionals like myself that simply don't shoot at long telephoto range all that often, but wouldn't mind having it for the opportunities they have to shoot that kind of photography. In fact, I'm seriously considering consolidating my 70 to 300L, which I love, with my Tamron 150 to 600 millimeter, and perhaps selling those and getting this lens to add to my own kit. It really is a great lens. Great optics, great focus, great image stabilizer, great build, and a great design. A lot of really smart things went into this lens, and I really, really like it. I hope you've enjoyed this cold but beautiful afternoon with me out here on the Ottawa River in Ontario. I hope you're done, because I am. My hands are getting cold. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and any comments you leave down below, I will do my best to respond to. Have a great day. Thanks for joining me.